Welcome to my advanced guide for Stellaris 3.0. The main focus of this episode is cruiser design. A full list of chapters are available in the description below. Welcome back to the Orthethi Interplanetary Assembly. The year is 2254. We are now in a federation which covers a reasonable area of space around us. Our friends, the local rock people neighbours, are in a great federation with us, the Marshall Alliance Pangalactic Defense League. We have a whole host of worlds, our economy is doing fine, let's get going. So we have just completed the Galactic Administration technology. This gives us an extra civic slot, but what can we do with that? Well, we can use it to reform our government and add an extra civic into our empire. Now, which civics are important, which are the ones we'd like to look at adding at this point? I'm going to assume already, if you haven't already done so, you will have already added some of your initial civics in, for instance, like Exalted Priesthood or possibly Technocracy, those kind of initial powerful civics. And those are not ones I'm going to be adopting now because I haven't taken them before. But if you haven't taken some powerful civics, probably start with those at the beginning. But now we're looking at which civics I might want to add to improve my empire at this point in the mid game. So there are some really good candidates here. If I am going on a war front, I might want to get something like Distinguished Admiralty. It's going to give me a slight edge with my ship, some extra fire rate. Citizen Service is a great civic. It increases your naval capacity by 15%. It's actually a really good civic if you're trying to rush up and build a large fleet. Now, Memorialist, on the face of it, doesn't really seem like it does anything except gives you access to the Sanctuary of Repose building. But what does that building do? Well, the base building gives you 5 stability without even having anyone working any jobs there. So Memorialist is a really, really powerful civic. And actually, at the moment, if I look at my planets, I'm at reasonable stability. I've got around 50 to 70%, but I could have more. And more stability is great. Every point of stability is an extra 0.6% resource output. So, and also trade value. So it's a really good thing to get hold of. Meritocracy is a very strong civic. You're going to get plus 10% output to your pops who are doing specialist jobs. That means that any research, any unity, alloys, that kind of thing, meritocracy is going to benefit all of that. In order to get that one, you do have to be a democratic or oligarchic authority type. Slaver guilds is also very powerful, but again, that tends to be a civic you'll take at the beginning of the game, not right now. So I'm not going to cover that one. Really, the ones I'm kind of looking at here, but really between are meritocracy and memorialist. Functional architecture is nice to have early on, but by this point I've got a well-functioning economy. I can build more city districts if I need to build more buildings. And I've already built lots of buildings already, so this reduced district cost and upkeep isn't going to be so helpful now as it was right at the beginning of the game. Byzantine bureaucracy, I do like this civic. It is useful if you're going to get to a point where you have lots of bureaucrats. You're going to be increasing your stability and unity from those bureaucrat jobs, not by very much, but it's something that does offset bureaucrats currently not really doing anything except reducing your increasing your admin cap and thus reducing your empire sprawl. What I'm going to go for here, though, is I am going to go for Memorialist. I'm going to show off the powerful effects of those buildings. Though meritocracy is a very good civic to have, I would also recommend that one. I'm not going to remove my initial civics simply because I'm keeping them there. Though I would like to swap out this cutthroat politics, possibly, and swap that with meritocracy, and throw away police state to have something like technocracy, or in this case, I suppose because I can't have that, possibly merchant guilds. It can be nice to have merchants, though it's not that powerful. Yes, but as I said, I am keeping those because I'm trying to keep a balanced, or at least not have any benefits to my empire. So now we've got access to the Sanctuary of Repose. By building one of those, it'll produce lots of unity with the jobs, but also it will just produce 5 stability right out of the gate. What a fantastic building. I'm going to be putting one of those down on all of my planets really where I can. Now I've got access to terraforming technology if I take this one. In addition to that, I've got gene tailoring, so I could go down the genetic path and take gene tailoring here, which would allow me to do the biological ascension path, and also allow me to eventually, with more technology, be able to change my pops so they can live on different planets. That's good, but to be honest, I would actually prefer taking terraforming. Yes, there is quite a high cost, 5,000 to actually terraform a planet, for instance, like this planet here, this tundra world that I can't settle on. That is a high cost, and I wouldn't recommend it, but for 5,000 energy is less than building a habitat, because a habitat is going to cost you 1,500 alloys. Those alloys are that is a higher cost if you do the conversion to build a habitat than it is to terraform a planet. So I'm going to take it. I'm going to try and terraform a couple of worlds just to continue expanding. It's important to always keep trying to expand onto new worlds and new planets throughout the game. Apologies, I've just realized my cursor was missing before, which may have made it slightly more difficult as you couldn't see what I was highlighting as easily. If that was a problem for you, please comment down below and let me know, because maybe it was preferable and I should drop the cursor in future videos. Before terraforming, I would usually recommend taking the terraforming gases. Yes, it's an extra cost, but what you're going to get from that is the speed of terraforming is going to be vastly increased. So if I terraform now to a savanna world here, it's only going to take me 2,400 days, which is it's a good reduction. Because as ever, you want to have your planets colonized quite quickly, because the faster you can have them colonized, the faster you'll get pop growth going, and that means the more pops you'll have overall in your empire. So now that we have cruiser technology, let's take a look at our ship designer for cruisers. Cruisers have a unique place in the game. Around the mid-game, when you research them, they will be the most powerful ship you have available in your empire. They're going to have high health. They're also going to have just as good a disengagement chance as your destroyers. And due to that really high health, they're going to be much more likely to retreat. Not only that, a lot of cruiser builds are going to completely wipe the floor with destroyer builds. For instance, let's take a look at what we've got here. So this is an artillery cruiser. I do have a Picket combat computer. Now, when you first research cruisers, you're going to be fighting against either other cruisers or you'll be fighting against destroyers and corvettes. With the AI, you'll probably be fighting against destroyers and corvettes, in which case you do want to have the Picket combat computer. Though if you're fighting other players, I'd recommend swapping that out probably for the artillery combat computer instead. With the artillery, you're going to get extra weapons range and fire rate, and you won't really need that tracking. As ever, large slots are very dominant, though they have difficulty hitting corvettes. So if you're building ships like this, cruiser class ships, you're going to find that your L slot weapons do struggle somewhat against hitting those corvettes. So in order to cope with that, there are two other types of cruisers we can build aside from these artillery cruisers that are going to have such a good time against any form of corvettes. So the type of ships we can either build a Picket style cruiser, and that Picket style cruiser is going to have a whole host of medium slots as well as the two small slots. Now this ship is going to find it does quite a good job at killing lots and lots of corvettes, though actually the artillery cruiser will have a better time in terms of tactical withdrawal than this cruiser, though this cruiser will kill more corvette ships. You're generally going to find, especially if you put on some crystal hull plating on your cruisers, as well as researching the upgrade for cruisers to give them more hull points, that your cruisers at this stage of the game will be nigh unkillable. Before battleships and neutron launchers are around, the small and medium slot weaponry is going to have a very, very difficult time dealing enough damage to a cruiser without causing it to disengage, meaning that over any long protracted period of time, your cruisers are going to do really, really well against enemy ships. You're also going to want to have the war doctrine hit and run to even further boost their disengage chance, and a trickster admiral. But this type of ship, the anti-corvette cruiser or a Picket cruiser, we're going to fill these slots with a mixture of If we're going against corvettes, we want to go with laser weaponry because lasers have a higher accuracy and tracking than the equivalent plasma throwers. So they're going to do more hits and they will negate more of the high evasion of corvettes. As ever, you probably want to throw in quite a few shields otherwise. And then a few auxiliary fire controls, making sure that you don't take any weapons above 100% accuracy. So we're only adding 10% here, so we'll only go up to 100% on those lasers, and 85% though on the kinetics. Now, the final type of ship, which you can build, though it is going to struggle if you come up against any artillery style cruisers, is the carrier. So a carrier, let me just build one up. This is going to wipe the floor with any type of corvette. I'd probably recommend putting an artillery bow on the front just so that we can have some possible anti-destroyer and anti-cruiser weaponry there. If you want to keep as much versatility on your ships as you can. Though, of course, you could specialize ships specifically for roles, and if you did that, you'd probably want to drop down to medium weapons if you're building a carrier cruiser, a little bit like this. Of course, you're going to have carriers in your fleet, and let's just throw in a laser and another laser. There we are, right. Actually, I'll throw in a coil gun. The reason I'm throwing a coil gun is that we do want to have something dealing damage to shields because these strike craft are going to completely bypass the shields and deal damage directly to the armor. Now, a little note on the carrier combat computer. Yes, you can take it and it will increase your engagement range, which means that your ships are going to start sending out their strike craft and fighters earlier. But overall in combat, they're not going to provide any other bonuses. So I would recommend you stick to artillery or Picket combat computers. The reason I'm not recommending line is that your auxiliary fire controls are already going to increase your to-hit ratio, your accuracy to 100. So a line computer will be superfluous on top of that. That chance to hit is not going to be extra and useful. The mainstay of the fleet I'm going to build, though, is going to be these artillery ships, and I might throw in a sprinkling of carriers to deal with any corvettes that I find. Having said that, though, some of these destroyers here, these Kana destroyers, which are my anti-corvette destroyers, are going to be quite useful to deal with that as well. It's important to make sure when you have a Federation, you do also update Federation designs as well, so that you make sure you have good designs there that your allies can build for you once you've got the fleet construction laws set correctly. A quick word on a missile cruiser. Now, as you can see here, I've got 3 missile slots, some small slots, and a medium slot. Yes, you could put missiles on your cruiser, but to be quite honest, I think you'd rather put them first off on corvettes if you're wanting to go with some sort of missile build. But secondly, they're simply not as powerful and can be countered by things like fighters as other weapon types. The large slot weapons, as I've said before and as I've found in lots of testing videos, they have complete supremacy. Once I get to neutron launchers and kinetic artillery, L-slot weaponry will be the mainstay of every ship in my fleet. Now I'm going to use my newly built fleets here to go and attack the crystalline entities so I can have access to the lovely Gaia world in this system. I've made sure that on my fleets, let's take a look at the Federation fleet, I've got a lot of these plasma accelerators which are going to do a lot of hull damage. Crystalline entities, as you can see, have only hull points, so anything that does lots of hull damage is going to be very good against them. The other thing you'll notice here is that my primary fleet is moving quite a bit faster than my secondary fleet. That's due to the presence of the corvettes in the fleet, and what's going on there is that those corvettes are arriving at the edge of the system first and beginning the hyperlane charge up time, which then means that that is charging up for every ship in the fleet. So over a long distance, you're going to get quite a bit of maneuverability or extra maneuverability by throwing a few corvettes into any fleet. And I am just going to clear these out, all of them. I'm not going to worry too much as well about losing the corvettes in this fleet, because as I lose them, I'm going to, in essence, decommission them. I'm going to go in here to my fleet manager and reducing the number I have of these ships, because they're actually a little old and I don't want to keep using them. and we are doing lots and lots of nice damage here to the enemy, while not losing that many ships ourselves. Let's just make this fleet fall back a little, because we want this fleet to engage first, I think. Now the Manifesti are coming up. An important thing to note about the Manifesti is you really do not want them. They come up when you have egalitarian ethics, I believe. The best thing to do is clamp down hard on them, because they're a political faction which really can ruin your empire. And there we are. The system has been cleared and claimed for the glory of the Orthethi Interplanetary Assembly.